Good afternoon and welcome. You are tuned in to the first in a series of industry webinars brought to you by BluShip Cargo and Freight. This series will be known as BluShip Live and is designed to bring broad awareness to challenges and opportunities in the global logistics industry while inspiring leadership and innovation to drive economic growth and development. In this week's episode, Executive Chairman of BluShip Cargo and Freight, Mr. Daren Miller, will speak with a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Mr. Ainsley Brown, in what promises to be a riveting discussion on Jamaica's move to become the fourth node in the global logistics chain. What does this mean precisely, and how can you benefit from such an ambitious initiative? The live discussion comes up in just 30 minutes, so don't move. Stay tuned as we invite you to like, leave a comment, click share, and subscribe to our channel for the latest updates and discussion bureaus.
Where smart shoppers go to shop the world and ship to Jamaica. BluShip, a leader in international freight and stable partner for online commerce. No hidden fees and free delivery throughout Kingston. Approaching a birthday, baby shower, or graduation? Use our convenient gift registry and earn up to 20% off all services, plus amazing bonus prizes. Big payment deals for Jamaican civil servants. Register now at www.blushipja.com to receive your free US mailing address. Track your shipment and unbox real savings, quality care, and innovation that moves for you.
BluShip Cargo and Freight was established in response to the challenges I see every day for persons who just want a fair service importing items to Jamaica. Having experienced these challenges myself as a business and family man, our team deliberated, established trusted networks, and began operations in May 2020. BluShip Live underscores this company's commitment to value and quality service. It is designed to offer probity, guidance, and support on behalf of the import-export public in all sectors to the national economy. The logistics industry has a critical role to play in Jamaica's advancement, contributing some $728 million to GDP, foreign direct investment, and the growth of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. We must therefore do all we can to ensure its survival by being fair, transparent, and innovative. On behalf of the entire leadership of BluShip Cargo and Freight, sincerest thanks for your continued patronage as we invite you to click like, click share, and click subscribe for the latest updates and interviews produced by BluShip. Thank you.
The supply chain is drastically changing. With the increase in technology, the access to data, and making that available across your end-to-end network, what it might look like in 5 years' time is very different from today.
Products, workforce, industrial assets will be connected. Collaborative robots will support the operator to work in a better and a safer way.
It's going to be enabled through technology, through ecosystems, through people and capabilities that only we can dream of at the moment.
The changes that we are seeing in the market are quite dramatic, and if organizations aren't looking for where disruption has come, they're going to be disrupted themselves.
I think historically, supply chain was relegated to being a back office support function. I think as we move forward, it's not just about having a great product or service, it's about delivering a great customer experience. Customers want choice, they want personalization, they want what they want, where they want it, when they want it, and all those have implications on the supply chains.
One of the key barriers to modernizing the supply chain is just understanding the digital technology landscape out there, whether that be blockchain or robotics or AI, but one of the biggest challenges our clients face is sorting through that noise.
Not asking which technology will be implemented, but which set of skills and competencies the supply chain will need to allow this vision of the future.
There's a huge amount of upskilling, knowledge transfer, different skills that are going to be required for supply chain professionals over the next 5 to 10 years.
An organization with a successful supply chain is well connected to its customers and using internal and external information to flow that through end to end. So it can be very proactive in the way that it manages that to meet those customer needs.
The future supply chain will not be able to deliver all the competencies and capabilities itself. It will need to tap into an ecosystem of cloud providers, different technologies, understand where it can leverage those skills, where it can supplement what their core capabilities are.
They're able to operate with all of their partners as one virtual organization with shared information, shared process, shared decision support. Those are the companies that are going to win.
When I started looking at BluShip, I think it ticked all the boxes of excellent service. One, it was easy to sign up. Two, you know what they said? They had free delivery in Kingston and St. Andrews. So I went on and I signed up, pretty easy, putting all your information. And then I got my shipping address. I said, let's test it out for Christmas. So for Christmas, I ordered some stuff for my son. I was like, okay, it's Christmas, shipping is taking a long time to come, to be delivered based on the pandemic. How is this going to work? Within a matter of about 5 days, I got a notification to say that my package was with the shipping company. And then in another couple of days, I got a notification to say that it was ready for pickup. And so I was like, okay, ready for pickup, what does that mean? But then I remember that they had free shipping, free delivery in Kingston and St. Andrews. So I contacted them and the gentleman came to deliver my package. The price for their poundage, pretty reasonable. The delivery, awesome. The person who delivered the stuff was very courteous, very friendly. He, in COVID time, he was well decked out in his mask and was ready with sanitization when he came to deliver my package. And so I've not stopped using them since. It's a really great experience that I had, and I would definitely recommend them when it comes down to speed, value for money, friendliness and courteousness and safety. Yeah, good company.
Jamaica entered 2018 with 5 years of consecutive growth and its lowest unemployment rate in history. There has been no better time in recent years to invest in the country than now. As Prime Minister, Andrew Holness told TBY, this was driven by continued stability in the macroeconomic environment, fiscal consolidation and sound legislation. Of the government's long-term policies, its commitment to reducing the debt-to-GDP ratio to 60% by 2025-2026 is paramount. Recent improvements to the country's ease of doing business have been crucial to this process. In 2010, the government established a National Competitiveness Council to figure out and implement the right policy reforms. It was not long before the desired results came in. While Jamaica ranked 94th in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report in 2012, it had reached 70th place by 2018. What's more, it climbed to 5th in the ease of starting a business and 3rd in reforms implemented, trailing only Mexico and Colombia within Latin America and the Caribbean region. Powered by private investments, the country is also unveiling a huge logistics hub initiative that will comprise 3,800 hectares of new development, create 90,000 direct jobs, and cost $28 billion. Apart from port and airport expansions, it will include the Gisco Jamaica Industrial Park, an aluminium cluster of over 100 firms, an aviation-related industrial cluster connected to the Sangster and Norman Manley International Airports, the Vernam Field Airtropolis, and the Carmanas Special Economic Zone. a flagship light industry and logistics cluster. The government is also working aggressively to reach 5% annual growth. The Port Authority of Jamaica already built 63,000 square feet of new BPO space this year and has plans to deliver more than 150,000 additional square feet by December. This will bring total BPO jobs in Jamaica to over 30,000. The government is working hand in hand with the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce. There are plans to boost the BPO sector, which will bring huge value not just to Montego Bay or the call center industry, but the entire country's business value chain. Taken together, the long and the short-term trends alike point to steady Jamaica's growth.
Today, container ships transport more than 90% of all goods in the world, and more than $4 trillion worth of goods annually. But it can take over a month for those goods to sail from Beijing to New York. By land, trucks move nearly 71% of all freight tonnage in the United States. Problem is, there's a shortage of truck drivers in the US. So how do you speed up shipment while keeping personnel low?
The future of shipping looks very much unmanned.
Anything that has high levels of customization, anything that's unpredictable, that should be done by air.
Many startups believe the answer is autonomous flying cargo drones that can carry heavy loads and fly long distances.
All around the world, millions of people are benefiting from drones already, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg.
The global drone logistics and transportation market accounted for more than $24 million in 2018, and that number is expected to grow to $1.6 billion in 2027. These drones could be the disruption needed in a global supply chain that has been largely unchanged since the 1950s. Getting large shipments of products across large distances is difficult. That's why Malcolm McLean created the shipping container in 1956. This standardized the shipping industry and allowed shipping to scale in ways that weren't possible before.
For a typical product that is being shipped from overseas and then received within the United States, that would involve trucking, ocean freight. In some cases, we're seeing the emergence of more rail being used as it's becoming a more reliable mode of transportation.
But now, with programs like Amazon's one-day shipping, consumers are looking for goods to get to them faster. That means the standard shipping methods, ships and trucks, have to be re-evaluated.
There is a seemingly insatiable demand for things right away by consumers, and that just keeps growing, and people become increasingly impulsive over time.
What it seems like is the supply chains, which are wildly complex, are built around the timeliness of air freight.
But the cost per item for air freight is significantly more expensive when compared to sea and ground shipping.
We're at the point where you really need to have those high value goods, or some kind of an emergency shipment would be an ideal candidate for air freight because it costs so much.
In the United States in 2016, 11.6 billion tons of goods were shipped via truck. 1.8 billion tons were shipped via train, 740 million tons were shipped via cargo ship, and only 5 million tons were shipped via airplane. But using autonomous flying cargo drones to ship goods might bump that number up.
Air freight is actually a mode of transportation that has increased dramatically. It's still a small percentage of all freight being moved, but if you look at the percentage change over the years, air freight has been growing much more rapidly. I think a big reason for that is the growth of e-commerce.
If you're living in a small village and you want to ship goods and be a part of a global economy, often your freight link is by road or rail, and it takes quite some time for your goods to be transmitted around the world. So when we bring autonomy and scale into aviation, every community can be connected with the rest of the world through an airborne freight link. And I think that means massive potential for economic growth in communities all over the world.
The main challenge is volume. You just can't lift as much weight into the air as you can float it along the sea, especially if you're trying to use battery-powered vehicles, like many of the smaller drones we see today. Current battery technology is incredibly heavy. BluShip, a drone company that has been working in the space since 2015, created a hybrid vehicle that uses electric power to take off vertically, then standard fuel to fly off horizontally.
So if you build an all-electric vehicle, you have an 85% mass fraction on the batteries. So that means you can carry 15% the rest of the weight and payload, which doesn't really make sense for cargo delivery.
See, the more volume you carry, the cheaper shipping becomes, even if that means traveling longer distances.
Going in from Shanghai, as an example, to the United States, it might take about 28 days by ship, whereas by airplane it'll only take 14 hours.
But still, ships are cheaper. A medium-sized 2,000-pound box from Shenzhen, China to New York can cost $1,200 by ocean, but it can cost $4,000 by air. Nautilus is working on getting that volume up and the cost down by using jet fuel-powered drones to autonomously fly goods long distances, like across the ocean.
Nautilus is building large-scale unmanned aircraft the size of Boeing 747s to reduce global air freight costs by 50%.
It will do this by using a uniquely shaped vehicle designed for cargo, not passengers, unlike other air freight carriers.
When Boeing and Airbus design airplanes meant for passengers, whatever falls out is what the freight aircraft looks like, and they're not really optimized on volume.
It also wants to utilize pilots more effectively. Instead of having 2 pilots on one single flight, it hopes to use 1 pilot managing multiple flights remotely.
There's a huge bottleneck with pilots today, which is limiting the expansion of air freight as well as passenger freight.
But Nautilus is still not ready to get its cargo drones into the air for deliveries. Companies like BluShip have already started making deliveries in places like the Bahamas, a particularly difficult area for deliveries because of the large distances between islands. The company's goal is to alleviate the shipping strains of high-need, expensive shipping, like when a specific part needs replacing on a production line, and it needs to be replaced quickly, since time is money.
I started BluShip out of a problem that I saw while working at Tesla. So imagine the Model 3 assembly line goes down for 1 hour. That costs the business hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars. And at that point, the companies and businesses are motivated to get that uptime and get the line going again at any cost. And BluShip is trying to help with that business and with that problem.
Other companies are trying to lighten the load of the ever-critical last-mile delivery. That's the portion of the shipping process that gets the product from its last warehouse or shipping hub to your door, and trying to hasten the delivery of medical supplies and samples for testing. Zipline has been delivering supplies in Rwanda since 2016, Ghana since April of 2019, and is expanding its service to the US this year. UPS has teamed up with drone startup Matternet to quickly ship medical supplies from a North Carolina hospital to labs for testing.
I think we can use this type of system to massively improve healthcare in the country. So imagine when you have to get that lab result back, how crucial it is to get it on time. And with a system like this, we can deliver the samples and then the results much faster than we can do it with the traditional transportation methods today.
But news of these delivery drones has been flying around for years. Prime Air, Amazon's drone delivery system, was teased back in 2013, and it still hasn't rolled out the program, though Amazon recently announced that it will launch delivery drones within months.
We're building fully electric drones that can fly up to 15 miles and deliver packages under 5 pounds to customers in under 30 minutes.
Well, the biggest thing I believe that is pacing the development of the drone industry is regulation.
FAA regulations are still pretty strict on these autonomous flying vehicles, and that has created a challenge for these drones. Competition for airspace is becoming more and more heated as drones of all sizes take to the air.
There have been some restrictions by the FAA that have restricted the use of drones for delivery to consumer homes, and that's something that needs to be overcome, and they're continuing to work on.
Autonomy brings a whole new set of public concerns, just as we've seen with self-driving cars. Because the public has grown to appreciate the safety and the assurance of being able to fly from one place to another, the regulators are hesitant to permit new technologies from entering the airspace until they are really proven satisfactorily.
Another big concern when it comes to automation is jobs.
as you hear some of the challenges related to drones, that's one of the things I've heard come up. There would be this whole workforce needed to be able to manage this, drone network.
But this technology could help alleviate some of the worker shortages that the shipping industry is facing.
Well, I think what you're seeing today, the airline sector, for example, has a massive pilot shortage, and it's forecasted to only get worse. The number of people that are going to be traveling by air is expected to double over the next 15 years.
But customers, shippers, and regulators all see the promise in these autonomous flying vehicles for emergency deliveries, for incredibly high-speed home deliveries, and even for large shipments of goods.
So I think that there's great opportunity here with unmanned cargo aircraft to start proving out some of the technologies in a lower risk environment without people on board. And these same technologies can eventually be introduced into the aircraft that we will use for flying around cities to and from work. And I'm really excited about skipping the terrestrial traffic as well.
I'm standing on the Palisados Strip, some 14 kilometers long and over 4,000 years old. The strip anchors an important recreational role. Just as importantly, it does a geological role, supporting the 7th largest natural harbor in the world and home of the Kingston Container Terminal. How well has Jamaica performed as an international logistics hub? And where does the country rank with such networks in Rotterdam, Singapore, and Dubai? That's part one of our live discussion, Powering Development through Logistics and Trade.
Good afternoon and welcome to BluShip Live with me, Daren Miller. It is the first in a series of such discussions being hosted in association with BluShip Cargo and Freight. And my guest this afternoon is Ainsley Brown, who is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in the Mona School of Business and Management, focused on logistics and supply chain management. Welcome, Ainsley, to BluShip Live.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, before we get into a more substantive discussion, because we're going to be looking today at how we power development through logistics and trade. A lot of persons have associated development with different things, given their own experiences, where they are culturally. There are persons in the more industrialized world, certainly in Western society, who believe that development must necessarily be the extent to which you are able to build skyscrapers, or persons are able to earn at a certain level per capita. Whereas there are other persons who just believe that it has everything to do with their contentment, their happiness, which may not necessarily involve wealth. As we look at the logistics industry, Ainsley, and as we point to what really development means, what are your views on development?
In terms of development, things have definitely changed over the years. There's the typical thing where you industrialize first, then you go into services and all of that. That's out the window. And Jamaica is an example of that, because we're a service-driven economy, but we're not developed. So you still need a level of industrialization, and you still need production, you still need services and industrial development or industrial production to work hand in hand. So it's not one or the other, it is a mixture of the two. And in fact, in many ways, you see where services are now supporting industrial production. So you have as a service, typically in software, you have, software as a service and so forth, but you also have other things, manufacturing as a service. So the person isn't manufacturing for themselves. They're offering a service to the world to say, I'll manufacture your goods for you. But it's a service, although they produce a physical good. So those things are being work together. And in terms of bringing it to our discussion in terms of logistics, which is near and dear to my heart, I believe that that is definitely a way to spur development, because logistics is the one industry that supports all industries, whether it's a service-led industry or industrial or production-led industry.
Well, in today's paper, I'm not sure if you would have seen where the PIOJ indicated that they have achieved 36% of their targets on the Vision 2030. You know, many of us would have known about Vision 2030. It came about in 2007, and it has been quite a while since it came about. And of course, a lot of persons have been looking around, wondering, where is the development? What does it mean truly? You know, what do you think about that? 36% of those targets having been met.
I will tell you now that I'm a firm believer in the Vision 2030, because it's an aspirational goal. One of the things that we have to understand, it's a process. It's not an event. It's not, you know, you do all of these things and then suddenly we are the United States of Jamaica. You know, we look like the United States. That's not, and it was never the goal. We have incremental change that does occur. I'm not going to disagree that, you know, things could be better. Of course, they always can be better, but it's a process. And also, one of the things we have to realize, it's not just about government. Government is only part of the implementation. There's also business and civil society and individual citizens. Every time you go to school at any level, you're contributing to the development of the country. You may not think about your education in that way, but that's what it is at the end of the day. When you go to school, you are not just helping yourself, you're helping the nation, because you're building the nation to be better. As just one example. So yes, in some ways we can say we're behind in terms of development, Vision 2030, but we're definitely look at the gain that we have had. Don't just look at the gap. Don't look at what we have left, but look at what we have gained. So a lot of things have happened, but a lot more still needs to happen.
We're going to talk about the specific developments in the logistics industry and where it is that we can go. But as you know, today the Prime Minister is to be addressing the nation surrounding matters, among other things, related to the recent breach that occurred, or the alleged breach that occurred with the Jam COVID app. You know, it raises questions for this industry as well, you know, because the industry relies quite heavily on technology, the use of technology, persons automating processes, information being stored about clients, customers, potential investors, and so on. In his address today, what would you be looking forward to hearing, or what should citizens be looking forward to hearing as the Prime Minister addresses the nation today?
Well, generally speaking, cybersecurity is critical to all industries, all sectors, and in life. One of the things we have to accept is that around the world, as much as you put in measures, there's going to be people that are going to try to overcome those measures. So you're going to always have to put in measures to counteract that. In terms of, you know, what be looking for from the Prime Minister is a overall assessment of the situation, what happened, and where do we, most importantly, where do we go from here, in terms of learning, lessons learned, and then rolling out those lessons across the whole of government, not just the Jam COVID situation, but right across government. And I hope as well that private sector learns as well and rolls out some of the recommendations or some of the initiatives that would possibly be announced in terms of actions taken by the government. Because equally as the government could have had a vulnerability, industry can have similar or same types of vulnerabilities. So the quicker we learn as a country right across the board and learn from each other, the better.
Right. And of course, it is a multi-sectoral approach that really speaks to development anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. When we see the most developed countries, the government certainly has a function, but we too see the role of the private sector in ensuring that continuity, multi-stakeholder relationships, and even beyond stakeholders, we're now talking to about citizens, stakeholders outside of the private sector. We're talking about the involvement of citizens in being aware and in asking the relevant questions and contributing to innovation. And speaking of which, in 2018, Jamaica's logistics industry was worth some $728 million. The data also shows that we were having 3,561 vessels visiting our shores and airports, and also 29 million metric tons of cargo coming to the country. And it's quite interesting because you look at that data and you think, wow, this is brilliant. Our country is thriving. But then when you pivot and you look at things such as the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index, which ranks countries in regards to how well they perform along various development matrices, looking at their customs operations and so on, you see where Jamaica has some way to go. Can you talk to us about the Logistics Performance Index? What is it? Where has Jamaica fallen short? Where has it done well? And what are the opportunities that you see coming from this particular index?
Well, firstly, let's put some context behind the Logistics Performance Index, the LPI. When it initially was launched, it was called the Logistics Perception Index. And even though they've changed the name, it's still, that's what it is. But perception is reality. So
Yes.
if someone perceives you as performing poorly, you have performed poorly. So we have to keep that in mind always when we're looking at the Logistics Performance Index. I think it was 2014, we had our best showing. And funnily enough, at that point, we had not done much. We had announced a lot, but we had not done much, but we moved up, again, perception. Now, when it comes to how World Bank ranks this thing and collects the data, one of the important things, and we're in another hat elsewhere. Some analysis was done. And one of the things that we found was when you look at one of the measures, it says, what's the average distance between the warehouse and the port? If you were to check the average distance, it would mean that you are halfway to Miami. So there's something off there, right? Now, people that are in your industry are the people that they target to fill out the survey. And we have had contact with the Freight Forwarders Association and so forth, and basically broke it down to them, like, when you react in a negative way and don't give credit to the government where it has improved, or you're complaining about the pothole in front of your house or in front of your warehouse, rather than look at the actual distance, it slowed you down a little bit, yes, but it didn't actually fully impede you. So you need
a lot of persons would disagree with that.
Well, yes, no, we have to put in reality.
I get the point.
It's a serious issue, it's a serious issue. But the point I'm making is that when the question asks you what's the distance, but then you factor in, oh, well, the pothole, so I'm going to grade the government down, it then has a knock-on effect because it has an impact on the sector itself, because people looking on will say, well, Jamaica isn't ready. Jamaica is performing poorly. So I'm not saying for people to score the thing on in a way that more positively than its actual reality, but
yes,
please reflect the reality.
Right.
Some of the thing is, though, since 2018, the index is delayed because it's every 2 years, and we're in 2021. Several things have occurred that have changed the game in Jamaica. We have, for example, the trade information portal. And if you're a trader or thinking about going into exports or imports to distribute, that's a critical piece of a website that you must go to. It gives you all for the first time ever, all the processes are there in terms of import, export, all the permits you need, everything is there and it's constantly updated. There's also the JSWIFT with it, which is the Jamaica single electronic window to bring everything into one. That's being rolled out in phases. Asekuda, of course, came out, and which is the customs management system, and they're adding more and more to that. You know, the port community system, which also for most traders, you know, you're not going to necessarily encounter some of these things. It's behind the scenes. A freight forwarders like yourself, you know, that's part of your business. So you ease for the customer, they don't have to deal with that. But before these systems came in, the process was a lot more tedious. Of course, there's still more work to do, but the processes are being much smoother than in the past. And just recently, customs rolled out a track and trace system where you can get greater visibility. You know, that should have an impact on the performance index, because that's one of the things that they measure.
Right. Well, Jamaica has been ranked lowest on the question of infrastructure, and its highest was regarding timeliness.
Mhm.
Quite interestingly enough, can you comment on that and kind of speak to us about what you know about the plans that our government may have in place to ensure that where infrastructure is concerned, where we are performing low, that we are able to now start performing much higher? And indeed, what do they mean by infrastructure?
I will answer this in a way that, because I have another hat that I wear that I
Right.
can't really
We don't.
go
Right. We
down
understand. Right.
a certain line.
Right. Right.
However, I'll speak to what is versus what is to come. And infrastructure means the connectivity, the port, airports, the roads that connect them, and in some ways the digital infrastructure as well. So you see a situation where the North-South Highway, right, connects the northern part of Jamaica to the southern part of Jamaica, making travel between Kingston and Ocherius like 45 minutes to an hour. Before it was like 2 hours or so, right? That's logistics. That's reducing the time. Greater freight, greater things can happen within the country. So that is infrastructure. In terms of the port, the port has different sections to it. In terms of the port of Kingston, so you have KFTL, Kingston Freeport Terminal Limited. That's been divested. It's owned by the government, but there's a concession. The French company CMA CGM, a shipping line, runs that port. Then there's KWL, Kingston Wharves Limited, which runs the private side, if you will, of the port of Kingston. Now, both of those combined, they have had investments, massive amounts of investments, upgrading equipment, upgrading. The port has been dredged for years. We've been talking about, you know, getting the port dredged. It has been dredged. The quay walls have been, you know, reinforced. A whole lot of investment has.
And on the point of the dredging, you know, what we need to make clear is that Panamax vessels are now able to enter our shores, and these are massive ships that you would not ordinarily find in Jamaica. And so we are now more open to receiving yet larger shipments coming into the island.
True. Even before the port was dredged, the Panamax ships could come, just not laden. They couldn't be filled with cargo, but they could come and do certain operations. You know, get some bunkering, which is fuel, and all these other things. They could do some of that. But now with the dredging, it opens up a whole slew of other opportunities.
Well, talk to us now about individuals in Jamaica. I have colleagues who they are themselves interested in going into the shipping industry as a proprietor. There are persons who have small businesses and they want to export to different countries all across the world. But sometimes it may seem, and they have communicated that it seems inhibitory. It doesn't seem like something that I could do for the big boys. You know, the systems that you spoke about, Asikuda, the port community systems and so on, how does that help such persons to be able to enter this particular industry and to have a time that is not so difficult as many persons may believe it is?
Yes, the first thing you have to do is just consider that, in any business there's risk and there's, a lot of learning that needs to take place. There's a high learning curve. However, it is knowable. That's the first thing that has to be accepted. Now, there are systems or websites out there that makes that knowing or learning much faster and easier and cheaper. The information system, the slips my mind now, the Jamaica Trade Information System. That one in particular, if you want to know, there's also several tools out there by the International Trade Center. One is the Global Help Desk. I love that one because it's more like an all-in-one. There's other ones that give you things about market access and things about export potential. I don't particularly like the export potential one because it's really focused on what we already do, just widening that rather versus looking at things that we don't currently do. But it's still nevertheless good for people that, you want to export dashins or you want to export yam. You can look at that and find out, do your market research. Where are the markets? The help desk goes as far as even identifying people that will buy from you.
Yes.
So there's all of these market intelligence tools out there available for free. It tells you what the standards are in terms of, what you need to do in order to enter the foreign market. A whole host of things are out there for free that people can go and read up at the International Trade Center. Just Google International Trade Center tools, and you'll find them quite easily. There's a whole bunch of other ones about rules of origin, which that's a whole other subject, but those tools are there and ready for people. Just to add a little bit more context, there's a little framework that I like to use, and I got this from our good friends out of Singapore. They spoke about something called value capture. I knew about value added and value creation, but they said value capture. What does that mean? So something I call the value stack. You create value, then you add value, and then you seek to capture value. So in anything that you're doing, just think about that basic framework. How do you first create? How do you, or maybe it's something that's already out there. So how do I add value to that which is already out there? And then from that, you say, all right, how do I capture value from that and build my business? Whatever you want to export, it's out there. There's a market for it. There are different other types of opportunities that we can discuss, such as buying clubs. We don't really have such things in Jamaica, where you have a lot of similar commodities, similar sauces, similar hot pepper sauce.
We're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. But as soon as you raised that point, it reminded me of one scholar who was likening the logistics industry to the coronation market. And what he said was that just as how you have persons who in the market, as higglers, as vendors, they would prepare the items, having got the items from country. Yes, the entire supply chain is of such that it goes from one person to the other to create the ultimate value, which is you coming to the market and being able to purchase this particular item and to take it home. So we're going to get into the discussion surrounding the global value chain that is even outside of the remit of Jamaica, and how it is that we can use that as a means of ensuring that our exports actually make market. But I want us to turn a little bit now to the question of training and development for persons in the industry. Earlier, before we started this aspect of the broadcast, there was a documentary that focused on innovation and how it is that persons are now moving to utilize drones to move items all across the world. And with that, of course, human capital may be lessened. So it is important that persons now become trained in yet other areas, because for years, persons have been studied in specific areas of the logistics industry. And what the age of automation is now calling us to do is to retrain and to grow and to develop in that particular regard. What do you know about the kinds of training opportunities available for persons to enter this particular market or to stay relevant in the market?
There is a lot of training available. Different schools have gone into it, or institutions. Several community colleges have gone into providing training. Of course, UWI at the master's level at MSB, and also there is logistics at CXE level, which gives you a theoretical understanding of it, and also so the right across the board, there's also, I know, Heart Trust NTA did a study which is available on their website, to match the skills training with the industry needs, and much of what they're looking at is not so much as the video that you posted around the drones and so forth, more about typical warehousing, but you still will need people to understand technology and understand, because those things are becoming automated. Do you remember the Google Glass? The Google Glass. It was innovation before its time. One of the as much as it seems like it's disappeared, it hasn't really disappeared. It's starting to reappear in warehouses. So
Tell our listeners some more about that.
So a warehouse person would essentially get the order, and they're looking through their glasses and can see the order, and they're going to go pick and pack. So as they go towards the box, and the box has the barcodes, they would simply have to look at the box, and it reads the barcode, and they'll know, is it the right one, and then what's the quantity of whatever they need to pick up out of that box to take and pack it to send to the client. So that's one way. It's also reappearing in medicine in terms of diagnosis, and this is where the outsourcing industry becomes critical, because as the doctor is diagnosing, the person in the back, who can be in the Philippines, in Jamaica, wherever, has the medical records and can go over, so that the doctors there looking at an issue and saying, hey, oh yes, I know this from last time, and let me just pull up your file. And it's pulling up the file, and the doctor's looking at the patient but reading the file at the same time, because it's in their eye, so to speak. So those innovations are there and occurring, and its use of technology. Just recently, the UNCTAD, one of the agencies from the United Nations, just released a new index about basically technology readiness. Jamaica did not perform very well, but I don't look at that as, the sky is falling. I look at that as opportunity, because there are things in there that can be done that you don't even have to wait on the government. It can be industry led, that easily could move us up in the index. In terms of drones, interestingly enough, I know the Civil Aviation Authority is looking at those things. And even if it's not last year, I think it may be the year before, they signed something with Google, I think it is, which will allow Google to fly hot air balloons above Jamaica. And what that does, it then broadcasts Wi-Fi. Google hasn't done that to my knowledge, but the point is, the permission to do it is already had. So
that's interesting, because the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology has recently spoken about a goal to have 100% broadband connectivity by 2025. And of course, if it is that the country is to move into this particular regard, removing Google now, but essentially going into the use of drones, looking at the studies and the exploration that the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority has been doing, then of course you need that kind of access. So everything has a connecting role. If it is that we want to go that route, then the infrastructure generally has to be where it needs to be.
Correct.
Correct. And when we also look at the question of preparing our workforce to be able to take advantage of these new kinds of technologies. I was also looking at the work of Singapore. Now, Singapore has one of the leading ports in this region and the world. There's also Rotterdam and there's Dubai. They have been performing beautifully. But one of the things Singapore, I've noticed, gives high precedence is the extent to which people are aware of emerging careers in the logistics industry. So there is continuity. Persons are interested to go in this area. So they actually have published an industry guide to have persons from as early as the primary school level being aware of not only existing careers in the logistics industry, but careers that are going to be emerging in the next 20 to 30 years. You know, what do you know about our own preparedness to go that route in ensuring that our young people especially are aware of how they can add value to this very important sector?
So more can be done, but I'll speak to what I know has been done, and what has happened is circulation. So, for example, Heart, I know, has done these studies. The Ministry of Labor has done these studies, and they're available on their website, but they may not be widely circulated or widely known. There's also been aid from different countries. In fact, I was looking for something else and found this one report from I think it's the U.S. State Department or some agency within the United States government, but it's aimed at Jamaica, and it's speaking about our labor force and moving certain things forward, and speaking about logistics and other areas. There is those things there are those things, I should say, out there. It's just a question of finding them and connecting those dots. So it's less about us not having them done, it's having them widely circulated and be known, and also to spark the imagination of people, because you can say you're going to be this or going to be that. If you don't know what one of those things are, it's not going to inspire you. You know what a doctor is, you know what a lawyer is, you know what an accountant is, you know what a nurse is. But if you say you're going to be a logistician, or you're going to be a stevedore,
A drone operator,
or a drone operator,
yes.
What is that? You have to inspire people to want to move to that level, or into those new careers.
Well, that is why we have programs such as this. I thought it important for us to have these kinds of conversations, and a lot of other entities have done some work in this regard, but I believe that it needs to be consistent. So these kinds of fora are important as we move into the next segment of our discussion, looking at Jamaica's legal and regulatory framework. When we look at the logistics industry generally, of course, we talk, for example, about the Customs Act that has been around since, I believe, the 1800s. I'm not exaggerating. And recently, there has been some move to get a new piece of legislation around so that persons can operate more effectively in this arena. Can you talk to us about that and just the general regulatory framework of Jamaica for this industry?
Yes, that is going to be critical. The Customs Act, critical. It also is connected to something else. We've signed on as a country to the Trade Facilitation Framework or Agreement of the World Trade Organization. So we have international commitments that we must meet. And part of that has to do with, it doesn't say get a new customs law, but there are elements that weren't in our current customs law that you can't just tweak it and add those elements. You're going to need a new paradigm, a new framework. And the new customs bill that is before a joint select committee of parliament now and is taking public comments on it. And I would implore anybody that's in the industry to take the time to go through and make your comments be known on that. That is a critical piece of legislation that will allow for a lot of things, much more smoother movement of cargo, more transparency, more accountability, and all of these things. So it will definitely be a critical part of the legal framework. But you can put customs essentially as the heart in the center, and there are other pieces of legislation that are important to how we function, and also other policies. So, for example, the port community system, that's been slowly rolled out over time, and one of the modules that they have is that you can't go to the port unless you have an appointment now, right? So that helps with congestion, and for people that love the environment, it helps with the environment because you don't have trucks idling there close to the port. But then also without that area being congested, it means going in and out much faster.
And much of the systems can be done electronically. Much of the processes are done electronically, right?
Correct. So again, with customs, with the new customs bill, there's a lot of that to enable customs to do certain things online, and rather than paper based, and such and so forth, and that will help things move so much more faster. But even within our existing framework, there's still a lot of opportunity. There are changes that are coming that are going to improve the system, but there's still a lot of unexploited opportunity in the country and in the region that the private sector can take advantage of.
Well, earlier I mentioned that in 2018 alone, we had some 3,000 or more vessels entering our ports on a regular basis. That raises concerns too, even though we're having that influx and it speaks to industry and development and so on. There are environmental concerns, are there not? And what has Jamaica been doing to ensure that certain emissions? I know, for example, the International Maritime Organization has made some pronouncements insofar as that is concerned. What can you say to us about that?
I would go further than saying pronouncements. It is now basically the law of shipping.
Yes.
So ships have to abide by this, or they can't sail. So
what exactly do they have to abide by?
There's more than one thing that has occurred, but there is cleaning up the fuel that they use in terms of sulfur and all of that. And Jamaica is a party to that. So any ship that comes to Jamaica has to abide by these rules, whether they're cruise ships, cargo ships, any type of ship. So the air pollution, the industry itself, the big players, the CMA, CGMs, the Maersk, Costco, I guess Costco, you can include them too, are looking to as a collective as to how, because they know it's in their best interest to find environmental solutions to improve the footprint, because their footprint is very high in terms of carbon emissions, particularly because of the fuel they're using. One of the things that they're looking at, for example, is to use LNG, which is it pollutes, but it's not as bad as the heavy fuel that is used now. And there are ships rolling out that are dual use, LNG and heavy fuel, or some of them are looking at completely LNG. There's even thinking about doing sails like back in the day with pirate ships.
Well, I saw one that wasn't quite sails, but it was like a turbine that was just spinning, and it generated wind and moved the vessel along. Quite interesting.
Yes. So they're looking at all kinds of innovations to see what they can do to improve the situation. Now, when the IMO puts down a rule, and because we are a party to that, a vessel literally cannot come to Jamaica unless they're abiding by these rules.
Yes. Well, as we wind down, Ainsley, we want to talk a little bit now about the global value chain and how it is that Jamaica can position itself to be, one, more market ready. We're sending items all across the world, and we're importing, we're certainly importing more than we are exporting, and that is creating some serious current account deficits in our country. But we have not looked very keenly, have we, at yet other markets than the traditional ones. We've been looking very largely at the United Kingdom, at the United States, who is our largest trading partner, and Canada, and so on. But what are the opportunities for us to now start exporting to yet other countries outside of those traditional ones?
Well, other than looking at let's look at the traditional ones for now, because even those are underexploited. I can tell you right now in terms of the number of goods that we export and the volumes. So even if we just focused on that alone, we would fundamentally change the country. Now, looking at other markets, some companies quietly have been doing. Seprod, for example, has a foothold in West Africa, in Ghana in particular, and is exporting different products over there, largely quietly. And there are others looking at what you'd say non-traditional markets, but the opportunities are definitely there. It's finding the market intelligence. Those international trade center tools, as I mentioned earlier, will definitely help with that. In terms of the overall global value chain, one of the things that we have to get out of our heads is we do not need to make or do everything. We just need to do a piece. We don't have to look at you import a phone, and it, like a Samsung phone or even an iPhone. It says made in China, but in reality, it's not really made in China. China didn't do everything.
Different sectors.
Exactly. The Koreans built the batteries. The Japanese did some other part, and then the software is coming from Europe, the United States. It's coming from all over the place. What happened is the Chinese did the last part in terms of just putting it all together. So we can be that, do the last part, or we can just do, there are little screws that go into the phones. We could just make that.
Right.
We don't
and
have
there's
to.
value in it. I mean, persons may be listening and thinking that, oh, why should we be just doing that? We should be doing more because it means more money. Well, actually, specialist areas is really where it is. You mentioned some of the countries, but you look at Italy. Italy is known for its leather. Germany is known for its automation. The United States is known for its pillow. You talk about the United States pillow and its cotton industry. So we have a role to play in developing a sort of specialist brand. What is Jamaica's brand? And that is even a critical part of this whole discussion, branding for exports. What can you say about that?
Well, we have a very powerful brand as it is. Brand Jamaica. We often talk about it, but people don't really define what it is. But it's a vibe. It's not really a brand in the sense of Coca-Cola or Toyota, but it's what you're getting because think about it this way. If it wasn't important, if it wasn't valuable, people wouldn't try to steal it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And people do all the time. They say it's Jamaican this or Jamaican that. And sometimes they want to stay within the law. They say Jamaican style. If it wasn't important to label yourself Jamaican style, why? It's a value. So we as a country need to recognize our own value. Let's take the patty, for example. And we're going to export patties. Several years ago, the quote unquote patty wars with Trinidad. And people might recall that. And you have, certain standards, phytosanitary standards to get the meat into the country. Now, I remember from then, I'm like, people are fighting the wrong battle. Why are you fighting that? There's ways to do it at the Caribbean Court of Justice and diplomacy. Yeah. I'm like, why are you fighting that? Find a way around it. Simple. What you do is, since the meat is the issue, why not sell the seasoning? You have a distinct formula that combines certain types of seasoning. Pillsbury, right? Pillsbury has these things you take home and you bake and all of these different things. Why can't you do the dough and the seasoning? Sell them separately. And then they can buy the meat from wherever. If it's Canada, you buy the meat in Canada. If it's Trinidad, you buy the meat. But you combine the two. Go on YouTube, put a video up that says, this is how you make true Jamaican patty, and now you have Jamaican ingredients going in there, right? Simple idea. And that is a basic example of innovation. We sometimes think of innovation as, we have to be Apple and Google. No. Innovation simply means taking ideas that exist already and combining them in a way that hasn't been done before.
Yes.
And that's just one example. There are countless others that are out there.
Yeah. Well, one of the latest pieces of information that have been made public by JAMPRO, which is the country's promotions agency, is that the country needs to move toward export diversification, as you're quite right. So we have for a long time been on the traditional areas, but they're now encouraging us to diversify what we are exporting because of the nature of the international market. It is always changing. The demand is always changing across countries. And so if we're always just exporting alumina bauxite, then it means that in another year or 2 years or so, there may be demand for something else which can replace alumina bauxite. So there's need for that diversification.
So along that line, I'm going to give a little secret. In fact, I'm not telling tales out of school. This is open for everybody to see. If you go to the Jamaica Special Economic Zone website, jseza.com, and go to the logistics master plan, industry analysis and master plan.
Yes.
You go in there, there's a whole study on what can be done. There's a whole study on industries. There's a whole study on markets. Right? There's still more to do because you're going to have to figure out who the specific buyer is going to be. But a lot of the work has been done. Is now for people to go in, connect those dots and move. So if we're going to move to export diversification, it speaks to new industries or even old industries and doing them in a different way. So that study is there for business people to pick up, go through and analyze and pick out and implement where they want to go and which industry they want to move into.
Well, I think also that there is an opportunity for this information to be made much broader. So it is, I found in Jamaica, a thing to have information in a website, and it is to have information in, picking up a phone and calling a particular company to get that details. But I don't believe that we've done enough in Jamaica to make it broadly available to persons who they may be interested to move in this direction, but they are not sure what entities they should go after. So to the extent that we're marketing well and marketing at particular levels, then I believe there's a great opportunity for us in this country to see more persons embracing the opportunities that are available.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Well, this program is one of those efforts, and I applaud you and your team for that. You found me through writings that I've been putting out for a few years. I'm not as consistent as I want to be, but I've created a blog area called Logistics Matters Jamaica. For people that are interested, and I keep putting out stuff as often as I can, because this is a message that has to get across and has to resonate from top to bottom, whether it be the individual or business owners, because there is really money to be made. There's really development to be had for the overall country in terms of transforming the country into a logistics centered economy. It's not a logistics only economy, but a logistics centered economy. And it's not just about transportation and storage of goods. It's far more than that. There's logistics in every industry. When somebody manufactures something, it's not just about getting in the parts to the factory, manufacturing, and then sending out. And then, so getting the parts in is logistics and getting the final product out is logistics. No, the actual manufacturing process is logistics.
Well, listen, absolutely. You finished the point?
Yes, it's just to get that mindset shift and thinking to broaden the horizons.
Absolutely. Well, listen, it has certainly been a pleasure, Ainsley, speaking with you. As you mentioned before, I found Ainsley through his writings, because what I've noticed is that there is not very much writing surrounding this industry in Jamaica. Quite frankly, quite honestly, I had a difficult time finding that information. But thankfully, Ainsley has a breadth of knowledge and information regarding this industry. And I believe it is important for more such information to be made public, because there are persons in Jamaica who want to do something, who want to earn, but who have not yet seen how it is that this industry can be of benefit to them. I want to share that information. I believe there's a space for that. And of course, Jamaica has such tremendous potential to move beyond where we are right now into development status. And I believe that the logistics and supply chain industry can do that. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for tuning into BluShip Live. Next week, we'll have yet another discussion on the same theme, powering development through logistics and trade. Thank you for joining.